Hello, Faith family. It is December 4th. So we have the fourth question from David Jeremiah's Advent book, Why the Nativity? And the question is, why the Song of Mary? Imagine for a moment that you have just received the greatest news of your life. Imagine that it came as a personal honor that you would never in your wildest dreams have anticipated. How would you respond? What would you do? Who would you tell? Mary's, a simple peasant girl, was already looking forward to her greatest day, her own wedding ceremony. Then, without warning, without preparation, she was looking directly into the eyes of an angel. What news did Gabriel bring? He told her she was in God's favor and that God was with her. This happened to be an era when the children of God felt that their Lord had fallen silent. There seemed to be no more legionary prophets, and the Romans had been allowed to conquer Judea. To hear that God was present was remarkable news. And then Gabriel shared the most amazing information of all. This presence of God would bring about the birth of a child who would be his own son. This would happen even while Mary remained a virgin. Meanwhile, a related miracle occurred. Mary's cousin Elizabeth, elderly and childless, would give birth to a child by her husband. The angel revealed it all. An immediate surge of self-congratulatory pride would have overcome most of us. We might have reflected on all the superior attributes we possessed and concluded that God had made a good choice. It's human nature. But Mary expressed only her simple obedience. I am the Lord's servant. May everything you have said about me come true. Mary must have taken several days to let this life-shaking news sink in, for it was a few days later before Luke describes any further action on her part. At that time, Mary did the sensible thing. She hurried to the side of her cousin and fellow expectant mother. Elizabeth lived as much as 5 days away, probably in the hills surrounding Jerusalem. When she saw Mary coming, Elizabeth cried out in an expression of joy that demonstrated her understanding of God's actions. Mary, having waited days to share the amazing news that had come into her life, expressed a little joy of her own. And we learn a great deal about Mary from the form that joy took. Mary lifted her voice in a song of praise to a wonderful God. That song has been cherished through history as the Magnificat, which means it magnifies. In early translations of the Bible, Mary's first words were rendered as, "My soul doth magnify the Lord." And that's what she proceeded to do. When we magnify, we enlarge or expand upon something. Mary was overjoyed to be in the presence of her cousin, who was obviously like a sister. But she offered that moment of their reunion to the glory of God. We read these words of Mary's and wonder how an ordinary individual could spontaneously produce such poetry. But here's a secret. Mary was quoting beloved psalms that we can find in the Old Testament. She obviously held them close to her heart. Also, her song of praise is clearly inspired by that of Hannah, another miraculous mother in Jewish heritage. Hannah's child Samuel had become one of Israel's greatest prophets. This song also suggests to us that Mary reflected upon the great characters of Bible history. Hannah may have become her heroine, a woman who dedicated her unborn child to God, then dutifully delivered him to the temple priests. What a sacrifice! The time would come when Mary would find her own child in the temple, and she would understand how difficult it can be for a mother to give her child unreservedly to God. Even now, God was strengthening the young woman to whom he would entrust his only son. Even now, he was preparing her for the tests and trials ahead. Most of us would like to have known Mary. We'd love to know more of her inner thoughts. Yet, She tells us more about her Lord than about herself. The Magnificat offers a wonderful character sketch of our loving Father. For example, she compares his greatness to her own smallness. He took notice of his lowly servant girl, she says. She attends to the greater perspective of God's working through history. He shows me mercy from generation to generation to all of us who fear him, she says. She anticipates the themes of her child while expounding on 3 decades later. He has brought down princes from their thrones and exiled the humble. She praises God for his faithfulness and mercy. He has helped his servant Israel and remembered to be merciful, she says. Fittingly, her last word is forever. Like so many of the Psalms, the Song of Mary soars beyond the limitations of time and space. Her Heavenly Father is Lord not just of her world, but of all the world. He is the Lord not just of her time, but of all human history. She shows every sign of someone who has spent generous time with God, who transforms all those who encounter him. Why the Song of Mary? It's easy to imagine. Mary's journey to be with a good friend who was expecting a miraculous child herself. On the tiring journey, probably in the safety of a caravan, Mary had time to meditate on the goodness of God and the awesome part he had chosen her to play in history. She must have spent a great deal of time in prayer, and she must have searched her memory for every psalm of praise she had planted there. At the beginning of an amazing journey, one no other woman would have ever traveled, Mary's focus was on the right place. She knew and expressed through her song that the resources of God are unlimited. His strength makes all things possible, and his love makes any burden a joy to bear.